The morning sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the Whitmore mansion, slicing across the marble floor like quiet blades. My son Noah, only 7, ran toward me with panic in his eyes that didn't belong to a child. "Mom," he whispered, clutching the sleeve of my coat. "Don't get in the car. Please." His voice trembled, small but urgent, like the crack of glass before it shatters. I froze halfway to the garage door, the keys still in my hand. "What did you say?" He looked around as if afraid someone might hear us. "I heard the guards. Mom, they were talking in Chinese. They said your car is going to explode." Grandma gave the order. Grandma. My stepmother, Teresa Whitmore. Elegant, polished, always composed, the woman who had smiled through my father's funeral like it was a board meeting. My pulse slowed, then quickened again, each beat loud enough to drown the morning silence. I knelt to Noah's level, holding his small shoulders. "Sweetheart, where did you hear that?" "In the garden," he whispered. Mr. Way was talking on the phone. He said you'll get in and then boom. The word hung in the air like a curse. I forced my expression to stay calm, the way I'd been taught to act in boardrooms full of liars. From the kitchen, I could hear Teresa's voice calling softly, "Emma, dear, don't forget your briefcase." It came with the same sweetness she used when feeding poison with honey. I turned, slowly meeting her gaze through the doorway. She stood in her pearl gray suit, a porcelain smile, holding my black leather bag like a peace offering. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady though my fingers were trembling around the keys. I could feel Noah gripping the edge of my coat behind me, hiding. "Actually," I added, "I'll take a taxi today. I feel a little dizzy." Her smile faltered just for a heartbeat before returning to perfection. "Oh, that's a shame. I just had the car detailed for you. I'll drive it tomorrow," I lied. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us thickened, sharp as cut glass. Then Noah tugged at my sleeve and I smiled faintly, leading him out through the front door. Behind me, I could feel her eyes following every step we took. Something told me that if I'd turned back, I might not have left that house alive. The Whitmore mansion was a museum of power-high ceilings, white marble portraits of men who never smiled. My father used to say the house smelled of oak and ambition. After his death, it smelled like perfume and control. Teresa Whitmore. My stepmother had moved in with her son Richard within weeks of the funeral. She'd taken over everything, the company, the estate, even the family name. People called her the iron silk of Whitmore timber, a woman who could sign $1 million contract while sipping her tea. To the outside world, she was grace. To me, she was calculation wrapped in pearls. I had been 23 when my father married her, still grieving my mother too polite to object when he said, "Teresa will bring balance to this family." Balance, as it turned out, meant silence. After he died, she became chairwoman of Whitmore Timber, leaving me with 25% of the company, a token inheritance. Enough to call me partner, not enough to give me a voice. Every time I questioned a decision, she'd smile and say, "You're young, Emma. You'll understand once you've seen how real business works." That was her way of saying I would never understand. Richard, her son, was the golden heir. He called me kiddo in meetings, sweetheart, in front of investors. He believed kindness was weakness and that empathy was something to exploit. Teresa encouraged it. "Richard has your father's leadership," she'd tell me, as if she were blessing him with my father's ghost. I learned to document everything: emails, ledgers, overheard conversations. Not out of paranoia, but out of survival. My therapist once called it hypervigilance. I called it common sense in a house full of polished knives. I moved out after one too many family dinners where Teresa asked me if I'd considered selling my shares to simplify things. She'd pour me wine, watch me drink, and smile when my hand trembled. I started my own design firm, downtown small, but mine. Still, every month she sent flowers to my office, white lilies, the kind used at funerals. It was her reminder she still watched, still owned a part of my life. When my father was alive, he'd taught me everything about wood, how to tell the strong from the rotten. "You can sand a surface," he'd say, "but you can't hide decay." Now, walking through the halls of his empire, I realized the rot had begun long ago, and Teresa had simply learned how to polish it. My only mistake was believing she'd stop at control. I never imagined she'd plan to erase me entirely. But power has a pattern, and in the Whitmore house, it always demanded a sacrifice. This time, the offering was supposed to be me. The day began with the kind of peace that fools you into lowering your guard. The sunlight poured through the blinds, touching every polished surface of the dining room like a slow inspection. Teresa Whitmore sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed, reading the morning paper in silence. Her presence filled the room the way heavy perfume does, impossible to ignore, suffocatingly elegant. Richard was already there, his gold cufflinks catching the light as he scrolled through his phone, muttering about market trends. Noah, my son, sat beside me, quietly pushing blueberries around his plate. I poured coffee from the French press, the sound steady, but my heartbeat wasn't. Teresa looked up, eyes soft but sharp. "You're leaving early today, aren't you?" she asked, folding the newspaper with precise fingers. "There's a new project launch in Dallas." "Yes," I replied, watching the cream swirl in my cup. "I thought I'd drive myself." She smiled. "Take the Cadillac. It suits you." That smile never reached her eyes. It never did. The new Cadillac had arrived 3 days ago, a sleek black car with tinted windows, a gift from her to mend things. I had wanted to decline, but she'd insisted, her tone gentle, her words threaded with guilt. "Emma, please let's not live in the past." That morning I almost believed her. Almost. Then Noah's chair scraped the floor. He slipped from his seat and went to the window, staring toward the driveway. The guard Way stood near the garden fence, phone to his ear. His expression was unreadable. Noah tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Mom, he's talking again." The same words. I froze. Teresa's voice floated from behind the newspaper. "Is something wrong, dear?" "No," I said quickly, just reminding Noah to finish his breakfast. But the air had shifted. The warmth of the morning felt thin, artificial. I forced a smile, set down my cup, and said, "Thank you for the car. I'll use it today." Teresa's gaze lifted, assessing me for a fraction of a second before returning to her paper. "Drive safe, darling," she said softly. Noah's hand found mine under the table, cold and trembling. He didn't have to say anything. I already knew this wasn't going to be just another morning. I told Noah to get his backpack ready while I went to grab my keys. The moment I reached for them, I heard his quick footsteps behind me, the sound urgent, frightened. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely holding steady. "Please don't get in the car." My hand froze on the key ring. "Noah, what are you talking about?" He glanced toward the dining room where Teresa's shadow moved behind the glass doors, elegant and unhurried. Then he leaned close, his breath trembling against my ear. "The guards said, 'When you start the engine, it will explode.' Grandma told them to do it." For a second, the world narrowed into silence. I felt my pulse echo in my throat. I knelt, forcing calm into my voice. "Sweetheart, are you sure?" Noah nodded, eyes wide, the fear too old for his age. "He said your car will go boom." He used the same words Grandpa taught me in Chinese, "Lady car explode." His little fingers tightened around my wrist. He wasn't lying. He wasn't capable of lying like that. A wave of nausea rose through me as the pieces aligned the sudden gift the guard she'd hired the way Teresa had been insisting I use that car. I managed a steady breath, standing slowly. "Thank you for telling me," I whispered, brushing his hair back. "Stay close to me now." At that moment, Teresa's heels clicked softly across the floor. She appeared in the doorway, smiling, her phone in one hand, my briefcase in the other. "You forgot this," she said, her voice warm, practiced. "And I charged your laptop for you." I turned, schooling my features into the same calm mask I'd seen her wear at funerals and meetings. "Thank you," I said lightly. "Actually, I might take a taxi today. I'm not feeling great." For the first time, her expression faltered. Her eyes flicked to the car keys still dangling from my hand, then back to my face. "Oh, but the car's brand new." "I know," I replied softly. "I'll drive it tomorrow." Our eyes met hers, sharp and calculating, mine cold but steady. I could almost feel her trying to read me, decide whether I knew. Noah pressed closer to me, clutching my coat. Teresa's smile returned, too smooth, too late. "Suit yourself, darling," she said, turning away. Her voice trailed off like perfume, sweet and poisonous. I watched her go, and something inside me shifted. The fear was still there, but beneath it, something else began to rise, clarity. I waited until Teresa disappeared into her office before turning back to Noah. His small hand still clutched mine, cold and damp. "We're taking a taxi," I whispered. His eyes flickered with relief, but fear didn't leave him. I grabbed my coat, tucked my phone into my pocket, and stepped into the hall. The house seemed different now, too quiet, too symmetrical, as if it were holding its breath. Every painting, every flower arrangement suddenly looked like part of a stage set for a play I hadn't agreed to join. As we reached the front door, I saw our driver waiting by the Cadillac polishing its glossy surface. He looked up and smiled stiffly. "Mrs. Whitmore said you'd be leaving soon." My throat tightened. "Change of plans," I said evenly. "Tell her I'll use the car later." He hesitated, glancing toward the security camera above the garage, then nodded and stepped back. I guided Noah down the steps, the sound of my heels echoing against the stone. The crisp morning air felt like freedom and danger all at once. When the taxi pulled up, Noah climbed in first. I hesitated for a moment, glancing back toward the mansion. Through the second-floor window, I caught sight of Teresa watching. She wasn't moving, just standing behind the sheer curtains, her figure motionless, a portrait of composure. Our eyes met for a second that felt like a lifetime. Then the curtain shifted closed. The car door clicked shut behind me. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked. "Downtown," I said, my voice lower than usual. "Take the long way." As the taxi rolled forward, I looked down at my phone and typed a message to my assistant: "Cancel all meetings today. Personal emergency." Then I deleted it before sending. Noah leaned against me, whispering, "Did she see us?" "Probably," I said. "And that's good." "Good," he frowned. "Yes," I said quietly. "Because people like her need to think they're winning before they fall." Outside the window, the Whitmore estate disappeared behind the gates. My father used to say, "You can't fight power with anger, you fight it with patience." I finally understood what he meant. Today wasn't about running. It was about preparation, about collecting proof before the truth exploded on its own. The taxi hummed softly, the kind of white noise that makes thoughts louder instead of quieter. Noah sat pressed against me, his little hand wrapped around mine. I could feel his pulse through his fingers fast, nervous too much for someone his age. Outside, San Antonio blurred past golden light spilling through the glass calm on the surface, deceit beneath. "Mom," Noah whispered, "are we safe now?" I looked down at him, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "We're safer," I said, though my stomach twisted at the word. My phone buzzed. Teresa's name appeared on the screen. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Then I answered, steady and controlled. "Good morning, Mother." Her voice came smooth as ever, with that practiced warmth that made strangers adore her. "Emma." "Did you leave already? I didn't see the car go." "I took a taxi," I replied. I remembered a last-minute meeting downtown. There was a pause, small but telling. "You should have told me," she said lightly. "I could have sent Richard with you." "That won't be necessary," I said. "I'll see you later." I hung up before she could finish her next sentence. The silence after felt heavy. Noah looked up. "Was that her?" "Yes," I said softly. "And she's already wondering why I'm still alive." His lips parted slightly as if trying to understand something beyond his years. "Why would she want to hurt you?" he asked finally. I turned to the window, my reflection staring back, calm, composed, almost detached. "Because people who can't control you will try to erase you," I said. The driver cleared his throat. "Ma'am, do you want me to stop anywhere specific?" "Just keep driving," I murmured. "I'll tell you when to stop." As the city streets opened ahead, I pulled out my phone and began recording my voice memo. "October 12th, I said quietly. Verbal account. 9:43 a.m. Potential homicide attempt involving my stepmother, Teresa Whitmore. Witness, Noah Whitmore. I detailed everything the conversation. Noah overheard the guards, the Cadillac, her reaction when I refused to drive. My tone was steady, almost clinical, but my hand trembled as I spoke. When I finished, I looked down at my son. "We're not going to hide," I told him. "We're going to be smart." Outside, the sunlight caught the edge of the city skyline. Somewhere behind us, in a house that smelled like lilies and lies, a woman was realizing her plan had failed. The taxi circled twice before I asked the driver to stop 2 blocks from home. I couldn't risk going through the front gate where Way stood guard. Instead, I led Noah through the narrow service path beside the estate, the one covered with hibiscus that brushed our shoulders as we passed. The scent was heavy and sweet, masking the tension in the air. At the end of the path stood the old garden shed. Inside, Joseph, our gardener of 20 years, was sharpening pruning shears, humming to himself. When he saw me, he jumped, startled. "Miss Emma, you scared me. I thought you'd gone to work." I pressed a finger to my lips. "Joseph," I whispered, "I need your help." Quietly. His eyes widened, but he nodded. I pointed toward the garage. "Go to the Cadillac. Look underneath, but don't touch anything. Just tell me what you see." Confusion furrowed his brow, but his loyalty was stronger than curiosity. He wiped his hands on a cloth and followed me. The garage door was half open. Sunlight cut through the space in narrow lines. The car gleamed black and perfect like a coffin dressed for show. Joseph crouched, his breathing slow, then froze. I saw his back stiffen. When he rose, his face had lost all color. "Ma'am," he said in a hoarse whisper, "there's a small black box stuck near the engine block. 2 wires, red and blue, running to the battery. That's no car part." My breath caught. My hands trembled, but my mind turned sharp cold. "Can you take a photo?" He nodded, pulled out his phone, and crouched again. A moment later, he handed it to me. I zoomed in on the image. The box was taped crudely with faint markings in Mandarin. My father's voice echoed in my mind. "Never ignore what looks out of place." "Joseph," I said carefully, "thank you. Now put everything back. Don't tell anyone. Not a word." His eyes darted toward the main house. "Does Mrs. Whitmore—" "Don't say her name," I interrupted. "Not here." He swallowed and nodded. I slipped the phone into my pocket, feeling the tremor in my fingers. "If anyone asks, I whispered you were trimming the roses." When he left, I leaned against the wall, heart pounding. The evidence was real, tangible, deadly, and the woman who had given me life's finest illusions had just handed me the proof she wanted mine to end. I called Michael Torres from the backseat of the taxi, my voice steadier than I felt. He was a private investigator, a friend of my father's from decades ago, and one of the few people who had ever seen Teresa without her mask. "Emma," he said, his tone cautious, "it's been a long time." "What's wrong?" "I think someone's trying to kill me," I said quietly. There was a pause. No disbelief. No surprise. Just silence, then a sigh. "Where are you?" "Near downtown. I'll meet you anywhere safe." "Fletcher's Diner. Back booth. 20 minutes." He hung up without another word. When I arrived, the place was half empty, the smell of coffee and fried oil hanging thick in the air. Michael sat facing the door, his gray hair combed back, the same steel-blue eyes that had once scared crooked contractors into confessing. He didn't waste time with greetings. "Show me." I slid Joseph's photo across the table. He leaned forward, studying it. "This isn't amateur work," he muttered. "Wiring connects straight to ignition. Whoever did this wanted it to look like an accident." His eyes lifted to mine. "Do you have any enemies?" "Emma?" I gave a humorless laugh. "Only family." I told him everything: the car, Noah's warning, Way's phone call, Teresa's reaction. He listened, without interrupting, his jaw tightening with each detail. When I finished, he drummed his fingers against the table. "You did the right thing not getting in that car," he said. "I'll start tracking Way. He's your weak link. People like him always slip when they think no one's watching." I leaned forward, my voice low. "I don't just want to survive this, Michael. I want proof. I want her to face what she's done." His gaze softened slightly. "Then you'll need to be patient. If she suspects anything, she'll clean house. You have to act like nothing's wrong. Keep your head down, keep smiling." I nodded slowly. "She's expecting me to die soon. I'll make her wait for disappointment." Michael gave a thin smile. "That's my girl. Text me everything, license plates, numbers, anyone who visits the house." As I stood to leave, he added, "Emma, be careful. Teresa Whitmore doesn't make mistakes, but she does underestimate people who stop being afraid." I walked out into the sunlight, my heart pounding. Fear had turned into focus. It was no longer about escape. It was about exposure. When I returned to the mansion that evening, the air inside was unnaturally still, as if the walls were listening. Teresa was waiting in the living room framed by the soft golden light of the chandelier. She looked like a magazine cover, impeccable white suit diamonds catching the light, a glass of Chardonnay balanced in her hand. "Emma," she said smoothly, "you're home early. I thought you had a late meeting." "It was canceled," I replied, shrugging out of my coat. My voice sounded calm, detached, but my skin prickled with tension. She gestured for me to sit. "Good. We haven't had dinner together in ages." I stayed standing. "I'm not hungry." A small smile curved her lips. "You've been distant lately. Is something wrong?" "No," I said. "Why would there be?" She tilted her head, studying me the way a cat studies a cornered mouse. "You tell me, dear. You've seemed paranoid. You've lost weight. You're pale. I'm worried about you." Her tone was silk over barbed wire. Every word was a test. "You're imagining things I said. Am I?" She leaned back, crossing her legs gracefully. "Sometimes grief reappears in strange ways. Your father's death, the pressure at work, it can distort reality, make you see threats where there are none." Gaslighting her signature move, she wielded it like a scalpel, slicing away confidence until you doubted your own reflection. "I'm fine," I said quietly. "Really? I hope so," she murmured, "because I'd hate to think you're afraid of me." I met her gaze, then steady, deliberate. "Should I be?" Her smile faltered just a little, then reassembled itself. "Of course not. Your family." The word tasted like poison. Richard entered at that moment, phone in hand, voice loud. Mother the contractor's invoice came through. "Oh, hey, Emma." He smirked, glancing between us. "Everything good here?" "Perfect," Teresa answered before I could speak. "Emma and I were just talking about trust." He laughed, not noticing the tension that burned between us. As he left, Teresa stood and walked closer. She smelled of roses and deception. "You should rest," she said softly, brushing invisible lint from my shoulder. "Tomorrow's another big day." Her touch lingered a moment too long. When she finally turned away, I caught my reflection in the window, calm on the outside, fire beneath. She was trying to make me doubt myself, but she'd miscalculated. Fear was gone. What remained was strategy. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, the silence heavy like pressure on my chest. Around midnight, I slipped out of bed and moved down the back stairs barefoot, the cool marble sending shivers through me. The garden was lit by the faint glow of the pool lights painting the hedges in cold blue. I heard voices before I saw them, two figures near the fountain, one tall, one shorter. Way and Teresa. I ducked behind the row of palm trees, my phone already in my hand. Its screen glowed faintly as I activated the recorder. "She's too calm." Teresa's voice floated through the darkness, smooth but taut with irritation. "That scares me more than her anger." Way's tone was hesitant. "Do you want me to finish it tomorrow? The device is ready. I can—" "No," she interrupted sharply. "Remove it. Make it look like an accident later. A fall, an overdose, a gas leak, something natural." Her heels clicked against the flagstones, sharp and measured. "If that device is found, it leads back to us. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore," Way murmured. "Good. Call Chen Hao first thing in the morning. Tell him to handle the removal himself. I want this erased." There was a pause, then her voice softened, the kind she used when she wanted control to sound like affection. "Way, you've served this family well. When all this is over, you'll be rewarded." My stomach turned. I stayed crouched until their voices faded into the night. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. The recording was clear, too clear. It was enough. I saved it, then sent a copy to my private cloud and another to Michael's encrypted line. When I finally stood, my knees felt weak. The garden around me seemed smaller, strangled by its own beauty. My father had planted those roses himself, believing their scent would remind us of home. Now the air reeked of betrayal. I slipped back inside, closing the door quietly. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the faint light of my phone. Teresa's words echoed in my mind like a curse, a fall, an overdose, a gas leak. I realized then that survival wasn't enough anymore. The only way out was through her downfall. By dawn, the sky was the color of steel, a fitting backdrop for what was coming. Michael had spent the night building the plan with Colonel Vance, head of the state police. I met them at a quiet diner outside the city. The windows steamed from the smell of burnt coffee and grease, but the conversation was all precision. Michael slid a folder toward me. "We're setting surveillance around the Whitmore estate, hidden cameras in the garden, the garage, and along the rear fence. Way thinks he's coming to remove the device. We'll let him. That's when we move." I studied the maps, my hands trembling only slightly. "What about Teresa? We'll keep her busy. She has a meeting at the timber headquarters at noon. The second she thinks you're gone, she'll start cleaning up." Colonel Vance leaned forward. "We'll need you to play along. Act as though you know nothing. Leave the house just as you would any normal day." Normal. The word had lost all meaning. Still, I nodded. "She'll believe it," I said. "She always underestimates people she's already buried in her mind." That afternoon, I returned home and moved through the house like a ghost. Teresa greeted me from the balcony, her voice sugar-coated. "Emma, you look tired. Maybe take a drive, clear your head." "Maybe later," I replied, smiling faintly. My pulse hammered in my throat. Every word, every step felt rehearsed. Beneath the surface, the operation unfolded, plain-clothed officers hidden in unmarked cars, drones hovering low above the garden microphones, catching every whisper. At exactly 11:42 a.m., a dark truck stopped at the alley behind the estate. Through the living room window, I saw Wei step out, speaking quickly into his phone. Moments later, another man appeared, a stranger in a gray hoodie carrying a small case. "Chen Hao." My stomach turned. They moved toward the garage. I whispered into the tiny mic pinned beneath my collar. "They're here." "Stay calm." Michael's voice crackled back. "We've got them." I stood by the window, pretending to fix my bracelet, while in the reflection I saw movement officers shifting position, the trap tightening. The front of the house was silent, serene, like any other day. Inside the garage, though, was a storm waiting to break. For once, I wasn't the prey. I was the witness. And soon, Teresa Whitmore would watch her empire fall from the comfort of her own deception. At precisely noon, the trap snapped shut. I stood in the upstairs hallway, the hum of the security cameras faint through the earpiece Michael had given me. From the window, I could see the driveway perfectly still under the midday light. Then the radio crackled softly. "Target in position," an officer whispered. Wei crouched near the Cadillac, wiping sweat from his forehead as he motioned for Chen Hao to hand him the small toolkit. My pulse thudded in time with their movements. Chen Hao slid beneath the car. Seconds later, Colonel Vance's voice came low and sharp through the radio. "All teams move." It happened fast. 2 unmarked cars rolled in from opposite sides of the street, engines roaring. Officers poured out shouting commands. "Police, hands up. Step away from the vehicle." Wei bolted, but an officer tackled him before he reached the gate. Chen Hao froze his hands, raised panic spreading across his face as they dragged him out from under the car. I held my breath, gripping the window frame so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Device secured," one of the officers announced. "Homemade explosive, armed and active." My stomach lurched. The world seemed to tilt. I'd been one ignition away from oblivion. Michael's voice broke through. "It's over, Emma. You're safe. Stay inside until we move to Phase 2. Phase 2. Teresa. An hour later, I sat in the back of an unmarked car outside Whitmore Timber headquarters. Through the tinted glass, I watched her in the boardroom, her flawless white suit gleaming under the spotlights, her voice confident as she presented quarterly profits. Then the doors burst open. Colonel Vance entered, flanked by 2 officers. The room went silent. "Teresa Whitmore," his voice carried through the speakers, cold and formal. "You are under arrest for conspiracy and attempted homicide." She blinked once, stunned. "There must be a mistake," she began, but her words drowned beneath the sound of the recording playing from his tablet, her own voice echoing through the room. "Remove it. Make it look like an accident later." Gasps rippled through the board members. Richard stood face pale, stammering her name. Teresa's composure cracked at last. The mask fell away. Back in the car, my hands trembled, but not from fear. For the first time in years, it was release. Justice didn't roar, it whispered, and that whisper was finally mine. By evening, the police station smelled of burnt coffee and tension. I sat behind the one-way mirror with Michael and Colonel Vance watching the people who had once run my household like a kingdom now sit under fluorescent light. Way went first, hands cuffed eyes, darting defiance, fading by the minute. At first, he denied everything, muttering about lies and misunderstandings. But when they played back the video from the night market, him handing a brown envelope to Chen Hao, his shoulders sagged. "She made me do it," he muttered. "Mrs. Whitmore promised me money, said it was just a warning, not real explosives." He signed the statement 30 minutes later. Then came Chen Hao. He was trembling thinner than in the footage, his English broken. "They pay me," he said, eyes fixed on the table. "Said just fix something under car. I didn't know it's bomb at first. Then, too late." His confession detailed everything: the purchase of explosives, the wiring instructions, the payment from Wei. Another signature. Another chain in the proof. Finally, they brought in Teresa. She entered calm, chin high, the same poise she'd worn at board meetings and funerals. Her lawyer sat beside her, whispering reassurances. When Vance read the charges aloud, attempted homicide, conspiracy, fraud, she smiled faintly. "You're mistaken," she said. "I'm a mother. I was trying to protect my family, not destroy it." Vance didn't answer. He placed a red notebook on the table. "We found this in your office safe." Her hand twitched. The colonel flipped open the pages, reading aloud. Phase 1, remove Emma discreetly. Accident or health complication preferred. Phase 2, secure majority control of Whitmore Timber. Phase 3, public narrative, grief and legacy. The room went still. Teresa's lawyer reached for the notebook, but she stopped him, staring at the words as if they'd betrayed her. Her lips parted. "You don't understand," she whispered. "She was ruining everything her father built. I was saving his name." From behind the mirror, I felt something twist inside me, not pity, not triumph, something colder. Michael leaned close. "She's done," he murmured. When Teresa finally lowered her gaze, the weight of silence fell heavy across the glass. Her voice came out small, defeated. "I didn't think she'd live long enough to fight back. And for the first time since my father's death, I realized that justice wasn't about rage, it was about endurance." The trial began 3 months later on a cold, gray morning that seemed to mirror everything we'd lost. The courthouse steps were lined with reporters, their cameras flashing like lightning against stone. "Heiress targeted in car bomb plot," the headlines read. I kept my eyes forward as Michael guided me past them, my breath steady, my steps measured. Inside, the courtroom smelled of varnish and tension. Teresa sat at the defense table, her white suit traded for an orange jumpsuit, her hair tied neatly back as if she still believed presentation could save her. Richard sat behind her, hollow-eyed and pale. When the judge entered, the hum of voices stopped. The prosecutor began with the evidence: the photographs of the device under the Cadillac, the recordings of Teresa's orders to weigh the night market video, and the red notebook, her own handwriting sealing her fate. Every word played through the speakers like an echo of every lie she'd ever told. I sat behind the witness stand, my palms pressed together, listening as my life was dismantled piece by piece in public. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand and looked straight at her. "Did you recognize the voice in the recording?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes," I said. "It was my stepmother, Teresa Whitmore." Teresa's eyes met mine across the room. For the first time, there was no charm in them, no calm calculation, only the faint glimmer of something she'd never shown before: fear. The defense tried to claim it was stress paranoia, manipulation by her staff, but Wei and Chen Hao's confessions were irrefutable. Every detail matched the payment transfers, the times, the instructions. When the verdict was read, the air felt still enough to break. "Guilty," the judge said firmly, "on all counts." Teresa's composure shattered. She gasped, her voice cracking as she whispered, "Richard, please." But he didn't move. Wei received 25 years. Chen Hao was sentenced to 12 before deportation. Teresa Whitmore, 30 years, no parole. The room erupted in noise, cameras, whispers, movement, but I heard none of it. My world had gone quiet. Outside, a breeze swept down the courthouse steps, cold and clean. Michael stood beside me. "You did it," he said softly. I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "She did. She built the fire herself. I just stopped standing in it." A year passed before the quiet began to feel safe again. The Whitmore mansion had been sold to strangers who knew nothing about the whispers that once filled its halls. I bought a small craftsman house on the outskirts of Austin with a porch that faced the morning sun and a garden where Noah could play. The world outside moved on, but inside I carried pieces of what had happened: the smell of lilies, the click of heels on marble, the echo of a boy's terrified whisper, "Mom, don't get in the car." Teresa was serving her sentence at Gatesville Correctional Facility. Sometimes the news still mentioned her, how the Queen of Timber fell from grace. I never watched the interviews. There was nothing left to see. Richard resigned from the company and vanished overseas, too ashamed or too afraid to face what his mother had done. The empire she fought so hard to protect crumbled without her control, and for the first time in years, the Whitmore name stopped appearing on glossy magazine covers. Noah grew taller, his laughter lighter. He still asked questions sometimes. "Did Grandma really want to hurt you?" The first time he asked, I hesitated. Then I told him the truth, but not the whole of it. "Some people lose themselves when they chase power," I said. "But what matters is that we didn't lose each other." He nodded, satisfied, already more resilient than most adults I knew. I opened my own design studio, Lumina Atelier, a quiet space filled with the scent of cedar and coffee. Every piece I created carried a name, a memory, a scar. Clients said my furniture felt alive, as if it had a soul. I never told them that each piece began as a way to heal, to carve peace from something broken. One evening, Noah ran in from the garden laughing as he held up a small wooden birdhouse he'd painted himself. "For you, Mom," he said. I smiled, setting it on the porch rail. Behind us, the sunset burned deep gold over the horizon. I realized then that justice hadn't just punished Teresa, it had freed me. I no longer feared the sound of footsteps behind me, nor the quiet. I had learned that silence can mean danger, but it can also mean peace. And this time the silence was mine to keep.